What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Wolverine #1 by Benjamin Percy, Victor Bogdanovic, and Andy Kubert. And while we do that, we're going to address a couple of things largely in regards to what happens when the Krakoan flowers that have been the lifeblood now of the mutant economy. What happens when someone takes those very same drugs that are being used for good and then turns them into a dangerous narcotic? More importantly, we're finally gonna kind of see the ugly side of the Order of X, a group of humans who worship mutants. What happens when you see the seedy underbelly of a group like that? And also, we're gonna find out exactly why a certain powerful being in the Marvel Universe wants Wolverine's blood. We're gonna talk about all that and more right now, but first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple eyes. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Before we get started, if you want to see more awesome comic book videos like this one, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click.
And I'm gonna go into it right now. This book is well over 60 pages worth of content, and there's a lot. It's a tale of 2 different Wolverine stories, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, yeah, man, it's a lot. In the first half of this comic, we're mostly dealing with the Krakoan drugs being perverted into becoming something more of a narcotic called pollen. And it's something that's being distributed by the flower cartel. Now, originally when I saw this, the thing I started thinking about immediately was, oh, this must be a tie back to Horde culture, which I want to say they debuted in X-Men #3 when Dawn of X kicked off, but that's actually not the case. This seems to be completely unrelated. And this flower cartel, they're basically coming into territories and muscling out any competition, shutting them down or absorbing them. And there seems to be one common denominator amongst them, and that's a figure by the name of the Pale Girl, who seems to, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, at least be telepathic, because she does seem to be able to make people do things that they don't want to do. Not only is that going on right now, but we also have a new character by the name of Jeff Bannister, a guy who's kind of a narco-style cop. He's going after this flower cartel, and it just so happens that he doesn't really seem to be overly fond of mutants, but he needs the Krakoan flowers because his child is ill and she needs these drugs in order to get better. His daughter, while dying of leukemia and waiting on these new drugs that are supposed to save her life, things kind of get gummed up in the works when the drugs start falling in short supply. People can't get their hands on them, and this is coming from a place where the drugs are being not just manufactured, in Krakoa, they're being manufactured on Mars, in the Savage Land, and for some reason, whole shipments are winding up missing. Maybe a quarter of a shipment here, a third of a shipment there, a half of a shipment here, and a whole boat there. Something is going on right now, and no one knows what it is. Even Sage can't really pinpoint it. And what is kind of seeming like it's boiling down to here is that Wolverine, he is being sent out to try and track this down, and all roads wind up pointing to Russia. And when they get to Russia, they discover that this Order of X is operating in some really shady ways. While the Order of X has no exact hierarchy, they have no structure of anything to speak of. They're all kind of just this ragtag band of people who worship mutants. But we start to learn that apparently there are some sects of Order of X who worship mutants so much that they are willing to offer their own bodies. Women are willing to give their wombs over to house the next mutant birth. There are men out there willing to give their seed in hopes that they will birth a mutant child. Where we live in a world where every man wants a son, every mother wants a daughter. These particular humans, they just want to birth a mutant because it makes them feel like they're that much closer to godhood. Even worse is that, we know these people go crazy. They go gaga for mutants. We've seen this over the course of the last, dozen or so Dawn of X, issues from, across multiple titles. But we also learn that apparently there are even other groups who think that sacrificing and consuming the flesh of a mutant will make them become a mutant. Couple that with the fact that there's this new drug on the street, pollen, that makes people feel like they're twice as smart as they actually are, twice as strong as they actually are, and it's not hard to believe that some of these people from Order of X are crazier than cat shit. If that weren't enough, when Wolverine takes his X-Force squad, which I also want to point out, I actually think it's really interesting that in X-Force, which Benjamin Percy, of course, also writes, Domino is still missing half of her skin, but in this she seems perfectly fine, so I don't know what the timeline is here. Anyways, that's not important. What is important here is that Wolverine and the rest of X-Force pull up on the Order of X. Things go bad because they try to sacrifice Kid Omega. But before any of this can happen, before even Kid Omega and his brashness can kill every single human that just literally tried to eat him, come to find out the drug pollen already did the job for them. And what makes things even trickier here is the fact, at the beginning of this book, we see that Wolverine has killed all of his teammates. He's killed Domino, he's killed Kid Omega, and of course, he's also killed Jean. And he doesn't even know why. He has no clue what was going on. And all we know is that he's left wandering in the cold wilderness of Alaska, pondering what could have possibly happened. And the only thing he keeps seeing is the pale girl. But before we can even figure out what's going on there, this is when he runs afoul of Jeff Bannister, who's working undercover to try and procure these Krakoan flowers so that he can build a case, because he thinks this black market of Krakoan flowers and this narcotic, he thinks that they're the root of it. And who knows, Sebastian Shaw is very much involved with a lot of what's going on the shady side of, Krakoa, so considering what he's doing, selling drugs to the Verendi, this wouldn't be much of a stretch. Not only that, this book does have a second story, and I'm not going to spend a whole heap of a lot of time on this one because it's really easy to sum up. It's the fact that Omega Red has come to the island and he wants amnesty. But Wolverine, having history with Omega Red, he ain't here for it. But Magneto does bring up a very interesting point that yes, at one point in time, and maybe even right now, the same thing you're thinking about Omega Red, people still think about Magneto and Wolverine. Now, granted, Omega Red is a much worse case because, he is, for all intents and purposes, he's literally a walking death machine. But the thing is that Omega Red comes to Krakoa covered in blood, not of his victims, but his own. And the gate that he came from leads back to France, and there's something on the other side of that gate that even he don't want no part of. Now, all roads point back to him. Of course they do. And Wolverine keeps digging. He even keeps coming back and asking Omega Red, what's the deal? And Omega Red is trying to convince him that maybe, just maybe, he may have changed. He even talks about the fact that, Omega Red, he has to consume life in order to maintain himself. The death pheromones that are a major part of his powers, if he doesn't consume life, he's toast. He's been feeding on animals and, maybe even occasionally the random dog, but he's been trying to find ways to get away from killing humans, and he's hoping that Krakoa can give him what he needs so where he doesn't have to kill innocent people, or, so he claims. But when Wolverine does a little bit more digging into where Omega Red came from when he went through that gate, he ends up discovering a whole ass coven of vampires. Vampires who do manage to get the drop on Wolverine, but of course, because of his healing factor, he can only stay knocked out for so long before he wakes up and begins running fades on every vampire in his presence, because even if they bite him, he's not gonna turn. His healing factor is just that strong. It would destroy the enzymes before they could even take hold in his body. But the thing is, the vampires, they're coming after him hard-bodied. They want to drink from him so bad they can literally taste it already. And leave it to what Wolverine originally thought was a woman trying to sell him flowers is actually a whole-ass vampire hunter named Luis from the Night Guard, the secret order of vampire hunters and killers of other supernatural things. They take out a whole coven of vampires here, they take out a coven of vampires there, but the thing is, they're not getting at the actual leader, and the leader of the vampires that really wants a piece of them is Dracula. Because not that long ago in Avengers, we gotta remember that the vampire nation has risen up, and there was like this insurrection that was actually kind of a fake coup that was basically setting Dracula up to become the next big bad in the Marvel universe. And right now, I don't want to put Eric Bischoff's theme music in anybody's head, but I'm bad, and I'm better than ever. And right now, the one thing he wants is Wolverine's blood. There is something in his blood that's gonna help rejuvenate him, and honestly, it would make sense. Wolverine has a healing factor. The guy has been shot, stabbed, burned, blown up, vaporized, and he in every single essence has come back. And maybe some of this was a ruse during the Avengers run, but it seemed like Dracula's powers had kind of waned some. And what better way to bring his powers back than by drinking the blood of one of the most prolific killers with a healing factor in the Marvel Universe? Not only that, but his blood is eerily similar to a vampire's. The biggest difference is being that when Wolverine's blood leaves his body, it begins to lose these potent properties that it possesses, whereas a vampire's doesn't. But on the flip side of that, his blood doesn't deteriorate when it's exposed to UV light, which a vampire's will. That, and it is compatible with any other blood type. Even more reason why Dracula would want it. Worse yet, we learn that Omega Red is not exactly out of the woods yet. He needs a carbonadium synthesizer to keep him from having to kill other people to maintain his life force. And it just so happens that Dracula is bankrolling this whole thing. He is giving Omega Red the synthesizer he needs, albeit one that is rigged to explode should Omega Red start, feeling himself a little too much. But at the same time, he wants Omega Red to stay on Krakoa and get all the information that he can and feed it back to him. He wants Omega Red there as his own personal spy. He wants Omega Red to pledge his loyalty to Krakoa, but ultimately obey him above all else. So right there in this book, I mean, granted, it took them almost 60 some odd pages to do it, but they told two complete stories that I'm here for. Originally, this was the book I was least interested in of any of the new, God help us, 5, 6 some odd different X titles they were introducing. And I gotta admit, this one caught my attention. I'm like, okay, let's do this. I like the idea of going in some different directions where it seems like, yes, some of this is gonna lean a little more heavily on what's going on with the side of, X-Force, but some of this is gonna lean on some stuff that has nothing to do with Wolverine in a lot of respects. Some stuff that, started technically with the Avengers. I'm here for it. I want to see more of this. And yeah, in a lot of ways, I actually kind of prefer, this second story, this vampire story, mostly because I have a soft spot in my heart for vampires, but still, I'm actually more interested in this story than the one they told in the very beginning. That's really the only bad thing I can say about this book. But honestly, I think there's something to like for anybody who's a Wolverine fan, even if you're not a Wolverine fan, which I'll admit, I'm not the biggest Wolverine fan, but this book, it did something for me. I like it. I will likely keep up with it, until it gets bad, which means Benjamin Percy, it probably won't get bad, but you never know. I like the themes going here. I think the writing was solid. I like the artwork in both sides of this book. I even liked how they kind of played on some of the themes from House of X that people thought were kind of weird. The fact that Wolverine seems happy now and, kind of even going even further into that. I thought that was really interesting. And the whole thing between the weirdness between Wolverine and Jean Grey, I'm still not used to that. Whatever. Anyway, point of the matter is this book is solid. You should definitely be checking it out. And who knows, maybe I'll do more videos about it if it keeps being good. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Wolverine #1 by Benjamin Percy, Victor Bogdanovic, and Andy Kubert. Sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in a buck, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra!